Yeah, courthouse, the trial attorney Bryan Rotella joins us right now to talk a little bit more about this. What about Caitlin's reporting there about this guy Davidson that they put up on the stand? They just tried to make him, as she said, she's right, to try to make him look like a sleazy guy who's, if you have some dirt on a celebrity, he's going to get you some money. What's the prosecution doing here, and how effective do you think it might have been?
Well, hey, Connell, let me tell you, Caitlin just nailed it. I'm going to break news here for you. As a trial lawyer, I would be doing everything in my power right now to try to tell, if Donald Trump was my client, you're not going to take the stand in this case. You don't need to. It's like a sports game where if your opponent's doing everything in its power to lose the case or lose the game, stay out of the way. And what Caitlin just went over is exactly what's happening in this case, which is you've got all of a sudden, usually when you have a case with a criminal defendant, like a Donald Trump, you want to make that person into like a Bond villain, right? So the jury gets this really, really bad view, and they're narrow, very, very zeroed in on that defendant. Keith Davidson has become the star of this case, and through the prosecution's own questioning and trying to get all this stuff out about Keith Davidson, who was the attorney who negotiated these quote-unquote hush money deals with Stormy Daniels and this Playboy playmate who allegedly had affairs with Donald Trump, they turned Keith Davidson into this, I don't know how else to say it, but a slimy-looking character who looks like he took a decade of a modus operandi of trying to shake down celebrities.
This really backfired? You think this really backfired on the prosecution? And if so, what's the impact?
I think I don't even think it backfired. I think that it set up the potential for Donald Trump to not have to testify, if they can get him not to testify, which is another issue.
By the way, that was always the issue. Like, a lot of people said he shouldn't have testified anyway. It was whether or not he was going to want to, right?
Oh, absolutely. Look, any lawyer will tell you, you can only have so much client control, and a lot of times you lose cases because of client control. But here, just trying to look at it objectively, Donald Trump should not testify based on if Keith Davidson and Michael Cohen are the star witnesses that this prosecutor has to prove a case that Donald Trump falsified financial records with the intent to defraud the American people not to vote a different way in the 2016 election. I don't know how you get there with the testimony of this Keith Davidson character and Michael Cohen, who is compared to the dog in the movie Up for being so crazy and frantic by Keith Davidson. I don't know how you get there, and that's the prosecution's case. That's where we are.
That's where we are right now. Yeah, it might have been a bad choice in terms of what the prosecution was putting together. They chose to call him. I want to ask you about one other thing that's come up. We haven't had a chance to talk about it here, but I've heard a few people mention it just because it's in the news, this Harvey Weinstein thing. So Harvey Weinstein's case got overturned, right? In New York at least. And we were talking about that part of it the other day. But here's the part I want to ask you about. We'll put up the headline. There are some who say, and here it is, experts urging Trump's hush money judge not to replicate the missteps in the Harvey Weinstein trial. So in other words, there was all this stuff on there about what are known as past bad acts, right, that were introduced as evidence. And I think the thinking is, could something like that come up, and could we see something similar echoed in the Trump trial? Is there anything to that? Something we should watch?
Yeah, I do think so. Connell, it's a great point to be brought up here. And what you're getting at is, somehow, some way, Harvey Weinstein is now being retried again when we all thought he should be in prison, based on all the evidence in that case. What's going on here is a lesson to the prosecutor and pushing the lever maybe too hard on things like trying to get a gag order on Donald Trump. Quite frankly, I think the prosecutor is going too far there. I think what Donald Trump's doing, maybe he thinks it's helping him from a political purpose. That's not why I'm on your show. But I think that in this particular case, if I were the prosecutor, I would be less worried about what Donald Trump is saying out on television. I mean, jurors who are not sequestered, which these jurors are not in this particular case, they're going to hear what he's saying. And I don't know that that helps Donald Trump. And it goes back to what we were just talking about a moment ago, which is I really think Donald Trump, not the president Donald Trump, the client Donald Trump, would just be, he would really have a chance, remarkably, in a very difficult jury pool for him to win, of being acquitted in this case.
All right, Bryan, thank you. Bryan Rotella with us on the Trump trial. So we'll keep everybody updated day to day on how it goes.